There's a smart breed of Canadians using US LLCs to avoid double taxation. But that's not even the best part. They're using those same LLCs to pay zero tax to the US government. How are they doing it? What tax forms are they filing? How are they filing them? And when are they filing them? Let's talk about all of these and much more. I'm Sal, a CPA in Toronto, helping US LLC owners pay zero tax to the US government. If you want to know how I'm doing that, I share my secrets in this video, so check it out. So now let's talk about what tax forms are required for an LLC, when is their deadline, and what do you need to report on them. If you want to watch more of these videos, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon. You're gonna get notified when I make videos exactly like this just for you. Let's get into the video. Some Canadians make the huge mistake of going to a US accountant to get their LLC taxes filed. They can not only make you pay US tax when you probably don't need to, but most US accountants actually miss filing this one form that's required for foreign owners of US LLCs. This form has an automatic penalty of $25,000. We will explain that and all of the tax requirements for LLCs owned by Canadians. Let's get into it. Let's talk about the US side first. An LLC is a flow-through entity, which means that the income from the LLC will flow through to you in your personal US tax return. Also, there's a separate tax return for the LLC that's required and where you have to file Form 5472. That is the form where most people get it wrong or they file it late and they get an automatic $25,000 penalty. No questions asked, you get a mail. In that mail, you get a penalty by $25,000 and you can't even argue with the IRS. You just have to kind of try your best to pay it or get a lawyer or fight it somehow. Don't worry, we're going to talk about it and we can see how to avoid it. So let's cover the tax filing for yourself. So that form is called a 1040NR. 1040 is a regular US tax return, kind of like a T1 personal tax return here in Canada. The NR stands for non-resident. People like you who are living in Canada who are actually non-residents of the United States. Now in your 1040NR, your LLC income is going to be treated as self-employment income, which is where you're reporting your income and expenses. And that form is called a Schedule C. You attach the Schedule C reporting your income and your expenses, and that goes with your 1040NR, the personal tax return of the US. The deadline to do this is April 15th of every year. But if you need more time, there's a very simple form 4868 which you can send out to the IRS, and that is going to extend your deadline by another 6 months. Basically get until October 15th to file that tax return. Now do bear in mind, this gives you a deadline for the federal tax return only. If you have to file a state tax return, we're going to talk about that in a minute, but this extension is not for that. So before we go on, I want to mention two very important things. One, if it's your first time, you will also need to apply for an individual tax identification number, an ITIN. That's like a SIN, but for the US. And the form for that is called a W7. It's a pretty simple form. You just need to put your details in there, but it's very important to get your ID documents attached to that form. It's a longer discussion. I explained that in a separate video. I'm going to tell the team to put a link here and in the description as well, so you can watch that video and know how to apply for the ITIN. So if you've got no office, no warehouse, no employees in the US, you're not actually required to pay any tax to the US government. And that's where US accountants get it wrong, and that's why you need a cross-border account. Now, I mentioned here having no warehouse. By warehouse, I do not mean you having a 3PL, right? So if you're an e-commerce store owner and you have a third-party logistics company that has your stock over there, that's fine. That's their warehouse. But as long as you don't have a warehouse, you don't have employees, and you don't have any office space in the US, you do not have what they call permanent establishment. This is a term used in the US-Canada tax treaty, and what they mean to say here is that you don't have any foot on the soil, on the American soil, so you should not have any tax to pay to the US government. So how do you tell the IRS that you want to not pay any tax and you're going to pay that tax in Canada and it's because you don't have any permanent establishment? The answer is a form called 8833, and in that form you basically mention to them that you are claiming benefits that the US-Canada tax treaty allows you. The article you want to mention there is Article 7, Paragraph 1. You're going to mention that, and you're also going to mention that the LLC has no permanent establishment in the US, and that would help you avoid any tax owing to the US government if you do not have an office, a warehouse, employees, or real estate. On this same topic, if you do not have any of these things, you also have no state tax obligation, right? So you could be selling to clients in any of the 50 states, you still would not have any requirement to pay any tax to that state. If you do have any of these things, that's a different topic. If you want me to make a video on that, definitely let me know. So on your personal side, we talked about all of those forms. There's a 1040NR, there is the form W7 if you want to apply for your ITIN, that's if you're doing this for the first time, and there's also the state tax return if that's a requirement for you, and the Form 8833. Coming on to the LLC side, you have the infamous Form 5472, the one with the $25,000 penalty. So as I said earlier, missed filing this or late filing this has that huge penalty. Now, what is this form? It's basically a form to just report transactions between the LLC and you, the owner. Because you're a foreign owner, the US government just wants to know what transactions you're having with your US LLC. So if you gave a loan to the LLC, or if the LLC made any payments to you, they just wanted you to report that. Because of the huge obligations and a whole huge penalty there, it's advisable to you as a cross-border tax specialist, but definitely you can usually do this yourself. Just make sure that the Form 5472 also requires a Form 1120. It's called a Pro Forma 1120. Very simple, one pager. You just attach it to your 5472, and then together with these two, you send them out. Obviously, I'm guessing if you've got an LLC, so you already have an EIN, because you would have needed that to open your bank account or do any other stuff that, for example, open a marketplace account like Amazon or TikTok or something. So that's going to be required to file the 5472, and you need to get that beforehand. So coming to the Canadian side. On the Canadian side, the Canada also requires you to report if you have any holdings in a foreign company. Canada treats the LLC as a corporation, so you're required to file a T1134, right? This is an information return, and it just means that you need to tell them all the income and expenses of the foreign corporation. Now, whether you're holding the LLC yourself or you're holding the LLC under a Canadian corporation, in both instances, the owner has to report this. So if you're the owner, then you have to file a T1134. If your Canadian corporation is the owner, then the corporation has to file the T1134. I just want to mention here that whilst the deadline for this is a little bit later in the year, which is October 31st, the CRA is very strict with this. If you're late, there is a penalty of $25 every single day, up to a maximum of $2,500. So you want to be very careful to make sure that you're not late. If you have been late, there is a way to voluntarily disclose the fact that you have this requirement, and we can definitely help you do that and make sure that you don't have any penalty to pay. But if you don't go through that voluntary disclosure program, you can end up paying up to $2,500 penalty to the CRA for this. So all this to say, there are a bit of complications, but having the right team can definitely make it easy for you. And again, if this was helpful to you, you want to know more about this, definitely hit the subscribe button. I'd be happy to make more videos for you. See you in the next one.